You know what? I think it's go time. Guys, can you hear me out there? Do I sound good? Welcome back to yet again another Fusion Friday or Free Support Friday with Fusion Phil over here at jitcadcam. You guys know we're having nothing but technical difficulties on this Friday the 13th, which has been nothing but bad luck on our end. Now, you guys are going to have to let me know, does my audio sound good? I did get, once again, another great comment at one point about how my audio sucked on a couple of highlight videos, but I want to check with you guys. Bogdan, I see you guys out there. My chat was broken also. Tried to get everything straightened out. Started the stream 30 minutes too early. We'll give this a few minutes. Normally we kick this off at 11. I'm going to go ahead and do the standard thing, which is crack open a nice energy drink brought to you by you guys that are out there buying me beers. Every time we do this, we appreciate you and we appreciate all the comments and questions you guys bring. I'm going to go ahead and turn myself up a little bit. Bogdan, you let me know if that's too much. Let's go ahead and see. Is that still clear? Everything's audible. And with that, as always, okay for you. Awesome. Looks like we peaked out a little bit there. We'll come down just a hair. With that, we got tons of stuff to cover today, but at any time, if you guys are new, first off, welcome to Free Support Friday. Again, I am the host, Fusion Phil, over here at jitcadcam. I'm not only the owner, but somehow the guy that tends to do everything on the support side here as well. We present to you Free Support Friday for you guys to get the help that you need and to get you through these problems. Now, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen as always, because I would like to kick this off without a screen. As you guys can see, nothing but the best of things going on here. So give me a second while I try to fix why my screen is not coming through. There we go. You guys can see my screen now. Again, best of Fridays, right? What better Friday than this Friday to have these problems? But I'm going to go ahead and pop open a brand new window here. And if you guys didn't know, if you have a commercial license of Fusion, I'm gonna bring this down for y'all, that you actually do have an online version of Fusion, as funny as it is. So a lot of people don't realize, if you Google search Fusion online, again, you do need a commercial license of Fusion. But what you guys are going to see me do right now is I'm going to actually launch Fusion inside of Chrome in this case, which is a fully functioning version of Fusion that is tied to my normal desktop license. So we'll give this a few minutes to fire up. Travis, great to see you. I know we had Cosmin and Brian in here. They're probably still here. I see the number starting to shoot up quite a bit. More and more people joining. Again, if you guys have questions at any time, go ahead and throw them in chat. I can see chat right now. This, of course, is taking longer than expected, but we'll get there eventually. Now, for a lot of you out there, you're probably already going to ask a few questions. Yes, there is going to be some latency with this, because you're going to notice this is a remote computer that I'm actually signing into. But the other side of it is the quality of computer. I'm not knocking anybody. It is not quite up to par, for example, to what my desktop is. But this is a good solution, as you guys will see, is for me to be able to use Fusion from, a Chromebook or a tablet or something of that nature. Any way to turn off the password thing where you try email? Yeah, we can go ahead and take a look at that. I know recently they just got me with the 30-day authenticator, but I'll show you a couple of things once we get this all pulled up here. Again, keep in mind, if you guys are going to use something like this, maybe you're on an older computer, this is just a tip for you guys. Where they email it, yeah, we'll take a look. So again, as you're going to see, this is just a Chrome tab that I have open. We're firing up Fusion 360. It is taking longer than I would like, but you will notice that it is a fully functioning version of Fusion. Now, the only thing that'll hurt some of you guys is, one, uploading your files can be a little tricky, as well as being able to export G-code, because we're not actually putting it on a desktop terminal. So here we go. Everything is firing up, and just like that, we have access to our data panel like always. Go ahead and close out that nice notification. And just like that, I'm actually using Fusion. Again, for those of you that are out there that are complete power users, you'll notice a difference. There is some latency here, and the overall performance is not the greatest of things. But as you guys will see me do here is I can still navigate the same, again, creating my setups, doing my different things inside of Fusion. I just thought you guys would like to see something like this. That's all. So again, my XYZ coordinate system going in, maybe we're going to do some adaptive clearing, who knows? And again, as I've always told people is you don't know your car is slow until you get into a car that's faster, of course. So again, we can turn on all of our cloud libraries, go grab our tooling. I want to get a flat end mill, as you guys see. Pretty typical stuff. Let me know in chat if you guys knew about this or if this is something that might be able to help you out if you're on a little bit of an older machine. Again, as you're going to see, probably going to take a little longer than you would like, but it is something that actually runs G code and code quite well. So again, I did test it a little bit earlier. It was 10 times slower from a time standpoint when I started throwing more complex stuff at it. But again, it's something nice to have if you don't have a high-end computer as yours truly does. So let's go ahead and go back to my Fusion. Now, if you guys wanted to see that a little bit better on my version of Fusion, again, I pull open that 2D strategies part right here. As you're seeing, my navigation is almost instantaneous. Now, keep in mind, I am on a 14700F processor. It is a later generation. So as you're seeing me move, it's of course acting much better and much quicker than most people would anticipate, depending on your price tag, right? So again, as you guys are seeing me go through my library, same thing. We're just going to grab a 1/2-inch flat end mill. And just like that, we're programming our part, right? So as you saw, again, in a pinch, works quite well. Maybe you don't have the best of machines, or if I had my tablet near me, I could actually pull this up on my tablet. So getting back into the other thing that Travis was already asking about is the permissions so that you don't have to deal with the email verification code. Now, a lot of you are going to question what that is, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my profile. I'm going to verify my profile real quick so that you guys don't steal any of my information that's not already on my website, right? So give me a second here. I'm on my other screen. And where is it here? They must have moved it because I do remember there was a time where you can't necessarily turn it off, but you can actually go in and, oh, so you can't even turn it off anymore, it looks like. I'm going to pull this over in a second so you guys can see this. I just need to get logged into my account. Yep, and now it's doing the password verification. So let's do this here real quick. So this is what I actually wanted to show you as a whole. So for any of you out there wondering what is happening is this is the new verification process. It's a 2-step verification. What it's doing is emailing me the code. Now, one thing you can do is you could say, don't ask this on this browser for the next 30 days. So again, what I'm going to do is I got to get back up on my other monitor, grab my passcode. You guys can write that all down real quick. We're going to get into my actual Fusion account. Now, again, you could set up 2-step verification, and you can actually use something like Google Authenticator by utilizing the QR code. Now, this would work better for a lot of you out there so that you could just get the code directly from your phone. Now, in my case, I don't have it turned on. Some might say I'm actually grandfathered in, or the fact that I'm still able to delay it by that 30 days, as you can see. But again, full access here for you guys to go in and be able to set that to at least a 30-day or give it to you on your actual device. Travis, let me know if that helps you out. Again, I'm seeing more and more people come in here. My phone's starting to pop off a little bit. The floor is your guys. So anything you guys have any questions about, feel free to throw them in chat. I have a couple of fun things we can, of course, work on here. I did get a submission from a customer. It's actually a pool cue. Now, something that they're doing on a pool cue here is they are doing an inlay inside of that actual part. So let's go ahead and fix my display here. Give me one sec. We're on custom. Let's just go ahead and go back to performance. But as you guys can see, they have this lovely inlay that they plan to put into this actual pool cue handle. So as you can see, I need to go ahead and cut out that inlay. Now, the key element here is to cut this inlay in a fashion that is only the width of the cutter, right? This is a very aesthetic process. So I've already created my setup, as you guys can see, my X, Y, and Z direction. Now, when it comes in here is I'm going to go ahead and do a 2D contour. Now, this is going to be a wrap contour, right? And I want to wrap it around my cylinder. And with that cylinder, I want to go ahead and set up my geometry. Now, when trying to machine something where we only want one side of it, I'm only going to define a open chain. And again, what I did there is I held Alt key on my keyboard, which allowed me to pick one segment. And then I picked that segment a second time to define how I want to extend it and how I want to wrap it around, right? So again, as you guys can see, I've now defined that very first chain. I always like to start with one and work my way further through. Again, we're going to go in this case, we're using a tiny little end mill for this purpose. And just like that, we have now defined a single path around our part that allows us to cut a nice area for us to create that inlay. Now, for a lot of you out there, you're probably going to question, hey, how do I shorten this up so that we're not overlapping or we're running into the part? And while that's pretty easy to do, now we're going to have to do a couple of things. First and foremost, the diameter of my tool, as you can see, is a 10 thou tool. So I'm going to need to reduce my chains by at least half of that, right? So in this case, I'm going to say -5 thou. And as you're going to see, is it's going to shorten that little blue segment up a little bit here. And now from that, I'm also going to turn off lead in and lead out. Again, the goal here is to cut nothing more than a nice clean inlay that we're going to come back and we're going to basically press a piece of metal in or use some type of epoxy to make this pretty. On the start, Travis, what's going on? Go ahead and let me know in chat. I just saw your message here. So now that I've done that first one, this is where I can go through and I can add additional ones, right? So again, we have our first geometry. Now, something I would pay attention to is one, if this is something that is identical all the way around, and in this case, that one chain is identical. So I'm going to go ahead and move actually down the actual axle here. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to define the next segment. Now, the reason why, again, I'm going to do this is because I have things like the ability to pattern so that we can actually get everything set up on one kind of clocked position and rotate it around manually. So again, we're going to go ahead and say -5/10. Not 5/10, 5 thou. Now, here's another pro tip for a lot of you guys out there is in the event that I'm utilizing multiple chains on a part, I can actually highlight those chains using Control to pick each one or Shift first and last, but I can actually align edges and bulk update these as well. So just keep that in mind. Just making your workflow much easier at the end of the day is just like that. We're now doing 2 of them. And this is where I would turn around and do something like a new pattern. So again, we're going to go ahead and say circular pattern around center of our part. Now it looks to be there is, what is that, 6 or 7? That's 6. So we're going to do 6 instances. And just like that, we're now cutting that profile all the way around the outside. And we're creating that stock model to show us where our inlays are, right? The start minus the start extension. Run that by me one more time, Travis. Granted, Travis, you have my cell phone. You could always just call me and we could just put you on the phone live. So again, as you guys can see, we do one, we patterned around to do the others. We could actually incorporate the same thing here for any other decorative pieces. So again, the luxury of the 2D is you are getting what's called the wrapped tool paths. So again, we could say a wrapped 2D adaptive clearing. I need to pick my geometry, or actually my cylinder wrap around, the pocket at which I actually want to machine out. And just like that, we're now going to get an error message. So let's go ahead and see what our error message is. So again, as you're seeing, we have a error generated by tool. I think Travis just tried to text me. Let's see here real quick. Yeah. So what Travis is saying is exactly, okay, so I misread Travis's message. He's saying a negative on the start, which is exactly what I ended up doing. And I'll show that to you guys here. So let's go ahead and jump out of here and let's jump back. So when I was setting up my extensions, his comment was based on a negative on the start, meaning add a negative versus a positive if you wanted to create an extension that starts further out. I've shortened mine up by just typing in a negative, and that shortened up my chain. So awesome, Travis. Great. Thanks for pointing that out. I appreciate it. So again, let's go back and see what we have going on here. So we do have a issue with our toolpath. Is that, oh, nope, that is an email. So we're going to go ahead and skip that one. So again, what we're looking to do is we're trying to figure out why it is that we can't do an adaptive clearing in this pocket. Now, the problem is Fusion is not doing the best of jobs to tell us why it can't do it. So now this would be something where we need to do a much more investigative thing. So it is saying invalid tool. So let's go in and let's swap out our tool. Now, keep in mind, right now we have a ball end mill on here. So in this case, it's actually not a ball. It is a ball, but it isn't a ball. So let's fix our tool. How about that? So first and foremost, let's double check our cutter. Let's get this swapped back out to a flat end mill, not a ball end mill. As you guys can imagine out there, yours truly has completely wrecked some of these tooling in the tooling catalogs because I get to play this game all the time of how do I troubleshoot? How do I get something to work right? What does it need? What doesn't it need, right? So again, what I'm going to do is let's take a step back even further. Let's go ahead and turn off wrap tool. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add tool orientation, right? So again, I need to give this a Z axis. Now, as you're going to see, it's going to be a little tricky because there is no vertical line in this pocket. So I would need some way to create a flat. Now, I am actually going to steal possibly one of those vertical lines on the end of my part. And even that is not allowing me to set my Z axis. So this is, again, where I might need to do something which involves jumping back the design. Now, if I create something like a plane, and again, that can be a plane through two edges, plane through 3 points. There's a ton of things that work really, really good to set a clock position. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a 3-point plane. So let's go ahead and grab 3 separate points here. So as you're seeing me do is I'm actually using those couple of corners down there at the bottom. And again, I'm getting an issue. And that issue is because we do not have construction planes turned on. So again, as you guys are seeing in real time, I've now created a plane that should be flat across all 3 of those points. So again, we go back to manufacture. Let's go back into our tool path, utilizing our tool orientation. I'm going to go ahead and pick that plane. Now, if you're having troubles picking this plane, something neat you could do is you can click and hold. Again, that's a left click and hold. And as you're seeing is it's giving me all of the faces within the view of where my mouse was. So I know that is a plane. It's not the bottom of the pocket. It's not the outside cylinder. It's just that plane face. And now you can see my Z axis is orientated up. Again, let's go ahead and hit OK and see what we get. So as you're seeing, some of my problems in this case, now taking you guys on a wild goose chase here, just because I like to show you guys what we go through, how to troubleshoot stuff. It seems to work much better for you. And as I always tell people, my end goal is for you to not ask me questions, right? So a couple of things are probably throwing off this wrap toolpath. Number one, the size of this tool can't really get in here the best because of what we have is called stock to leave. Now, the stock to leave is massive when you consider this is a 10 thou tool and we're leaving 20 everywhere. Again, adaptive clearing is a roughing strategy. So let's go ahead and change our stock to leave and let's go down to about 5 thou. Now, keep in mind, a 10 thou tool, I'm going to have to make a couple of finish passes at some point, but this should, in theory, give us a lot more room to work with And again, why we can't see that toolpath is because it is a concave or convex shape at the bottom here, but our plane actually sits below that. But I can see we are now working in the entire area. So again, let's go back to 2D adaptive clearing. Let's get rid of that tool orientation, turn back on our wrapped, round the outside cylinder, and see what we get. So as you guys are going to see now, wrapped toolpath did work. It did work with that tool. The problem is we didn't have enough area for that tool to work within, right? So I would have had to gone to a smaller tool, or, you know, in this case, I changed my stock to leave. And again, pro tip for a lot of you guys out there, we can go ahead and just jump straight into our 2D contour for finishing. And another trick I like to show people is, in the event that you wanted to, we could actually use 2D pocket clearing to go ahead and clean up those floors as well. So again, we're using a roughing strategy that uses flutes, right? The side of the tool to open everything up. Then we come back with our pocket clearing. Again, this is going to give us a nice floor kind of pattern, clean everything up on that floor. Lastly, cleaning everything up on the walls, as you can see. So one thing I am seeing here is, one, my graphics card is starting to hit the end and the limits of what this wants to calculate. This is where I love this new ability to go in and say, you know what, I need more quality. I need to change out to maybe custom presets. But I can see here that we are finishing deeper on the contour than we are on the pocket. Ash, I see you out there, man. I'm going to get to your part here in a minute, but let's wrap this up the rest of the way, right? So again, we jump in. In this case, our stock to leave on the axial is going to be 0. Again, we want to go deeper. We want to go to the true depth of that pocket. And just like that, you're now working all the way down to the floor. And then we're cleaning up our walls. And if we were to turn our model off, you can see this is a little better representation. But because this is so small, the mesh in the background is what we're starting to see fall apart more than it is actually my graphics card. So Ash, let's go ahead and get your part opened up. I'm going to go ahead and swap screens here real quick. Give me a sec. Ash, where did you send that to? Did you put that in as a support ticket? You did. Awesome. A chatter-free toolpath on a copper bushing. Oh, man. You guys making fun of me, don't you? Go ahead and get you all opened up here. I'm going to go ahead and minimize my other screen so I can keep an eye on you guys. How's everybody's Friday going? I hope your guys' Friday is doing way better than the start of this stream did. Stuart, I'm running a 4060 graphics card. It's nothing special at the end of the day. Again, I just did a pre-build system. I bought an Alienware computer. I put more RAM in it personally, but there was 2 things that I knew going into it that I recommend to everybody. Go for a high-end processor. You don't need a high-end graphics card, right? Perfect example, 14700F is what I have for a CPU. And then my graphics card is just a 4060. Now, given the generational stuff, that whole total bill, I think, came out to like $1,300, and it runs like a champ. So let's go ahead and get this NLG trunnion bushing pulled up. Now, I am being told this is made out of beryllium, and you're getting chatter. Now, there would be a lot of reasons why I would question what it is that you're doing that is giving you chatter. Can you point us, Ash, in the right direction so that I know exactly what toolpath is it that's giving you the chatter problems? Some chatter be gone spray. I like it. I've seen every trick in the book at this point. I think I've seen people tape, you know, quarters onto stuff, rubber bands. Travis, we could always take a look at the specs of your laptop. No offense to Travis. I'm not calling anybody out here. I see it all the time on the Facebook groups where people are like, man, I have a $3,000 computer. Why doesn't Fusion run right? Well, first and foremost, it was $3,000 3 years ago, which means it's like a $600 computer. But as you can see, we can also evaluate that. I do have some good videos on performance settings to help you guys out as well. So anytime you are doing the bore on the ID, you're getting chatter. So let's look at a couple of things. First and foremost, toolpath looks pretty good overall. I don't see anything too crazy here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and edit the toolpath. Now, very first thing I always like to look at is what is your speeds and feeds kind of at, and what should they be at based on your tooling. Now, if you can, in this case, Ash, can you throw into the chat if you have the actual specs on your tooling, like insert IP or an EPDI number? We can look it up and take a look. I would assume, and this is just a quick assumption, if you're running at 2,500 RPMs and a feed rate of 2,000, you may be too aggressive on this cut altogether. Now, don't quote me on that. That's why I want to see the speeds and feeds based on the material, right? So let's move a little bit further over. Now, another thing that I have seen in the past cause problems from chattering is that you're taking too small of a depth of cut, right? So again, it's depending on, and I learned this lesson very hard on milling. So if I go back here to this 2D strategy, is I used to get these tools. Now, this is not me promoting a special company, but Destiny Tools makes some killer tools for running in aluminum, but you have to be able to push them as hard as the tool requires, or else they sound absolutely terrible. It was one of the first times in my career where I was taking, a 40% step over and a 2 to 3 time depth of cut and running just crazy, crazy hard, right? So again, so it looks like we have a KC 730 insert. Who makes that insert exactly? We'll give you a few minutes. Is that from Haas? Kind of metal. All right. Stuart says just tell ChatGPT what you want. Osman's got an entire inner tube wrapped around his machine from a bicycle to help with dampening chatter. A few other questions I would have too for you, Ash, why we kind of walk through this is one, this boring bar is massive. How far is that boring bar sticking out will always be a good question as well. I see the chat starting to pop off. I see a lot of people jumping in here. If you guys have any questions at any time, feel free to go ahead and throw them in chat, right? So, all right. So we have a Kennametal. Did you use Kennametal's fancy calculator at all to figure out the information on that? Again, I'm just doing a little Googling on my side. Give me a few seconds, guys, just so I can get the best information. I'm going to go ahead and split screen. There we go. Get you guys moved around a little bit so I can see what you're saying. In the meantime, any other questions outside of that? Boring bar's hanging out an inch. All right. Do you have more information on that boring bar overall? Because that is a insert material type. That's not the actual physical insert. Give me a few seconds here. Been a few minutes since I've had to use good old Kennametal's website. What is beryllium referred to as a hardness? Do you guys know what it is off the top of your head out there? And if you guys are saying anything in chat, give me a few minutes here. I'm moving some windows around. Boring bar is a Haas. Okay. Travis is doing some things with some threading. That's always fun. Give me a few seconds here. All right. So you got a Haas boring bar. You're using a Kennametal's insert, right? And we are dealing with beryllium. Did you end up finding a good link to the actual website for what you need to use? Or a speeds and feeds chart at all? I mean, it could make sense to do the ID of the part first, but I don't think you're going to have a lot of chatter coming from the wall thickness here. And presumably, this is just my take on it, Ash, is as you start to make that first cut, does the first cut have chatter in it? Because that would be right away, is if you're making that first cut and it itself has chatter. I'm going to go ahead and pull this up. One, look how big that first cut is. So I don't know if you intentionally meant to make that size cut, but my question would be is, does, you know, a smaller cut like this one, the second path, it's such a small cut, is there chatter then, right? That would be my curiosity is, are you getting chatter when you get further out on the OD? Are you getting chatter, you know, at every pass? Because again, something that I think a lot of people overlook too is if you didn't get that tool perfectly in there at the right angle and all of that stuff, that can cause as well. Sorry, guys. I got a couple of emails and texts. Let me just double verify everything real quick. But again, for non-ferrous, I always lean towards H1 shiny inserts from China. Designed for aluminum. The sharp edge does the trick. But he turns manual. Cosmin, that's a great point out for sure. The first part of the chat part doesn't chatter that much. So all your OD stuff isn't chattering? Is that the same inserts on the OD? So that would be my narrowing down so far. Is first and foremost is if your OD work is going very, very well and you're not getting chatter of any means, that would tell me one is it the insert? Is it the insert material? Is the alignment of the insert actually proper, right? So I do see this a lot on boring bars is you start chasing your tail and wondering why something's not working right. But when you look at the orientation of the boring bar, now I'm looking at this straight down the end. Let's get flipped here and let's get material out of the way. As you guys can see, my boring bar might be angular off a few degrees, either up or down, right? So again, as you guys could determine, I would check to make sure that it's actually in the machine level. It's square to the spindle. Is it making contact at the right point? Is it rubbing on the backside? So there's a lot of ways to do that. I would tell you this is because you're dealing with an X-axis kind of machine, is an easy way is to put a parallel on top of it and then an indicator over here on your spindle and then just run it in and run it on your X because you should have flats on there, right? And again, this could just be, is it in like a actual sleeve or is it, you know, flat mounted on a tool post? Hold on one, guys. I got a phone call that keeps coming in. Give me 1 second here. All right. Oh, wrong screen. We're back. Okay. So again, so it's in a sleeve. Yeah. So when you put a lot of these in a sleeve and then it's got a couple of set screws that go down on top of it, when you tighten those set screws, sometimes it rotates itself or it doesn't actually sit flat. So again, this would just be my take is key element number one. Let's make sure you have the right speeds and feeds. I see a lot of bad come from the wrong speeds and feeds or the wrong depth of cuts. given these are kind of metal inserts, you should be able to email the tooling rep and he should be able to get you with an applications guy. Ash, I don't know where you're located in the US. If you're in Minnesota, reach out to me. I know the apps guy. I will get you in contact. But that would be the one thing that I tend to look at. Now, again, if you're making or replicating this somewhere else, again, this is a good example. If it starts to make a couple of good cuts and then the further out it turns into bad cuts, that might be something where, again, as your tool is twisted or clocked. I think somebody said the set screws too. I don't know how many set screws you have holding that boring bar in. I've seen tricks where you loosen one of those, magically it all goes away, right? Any other questions outside of that while we're sitting here? I don't think you're wrong. Also, Ash, I think by all means, you could have easily also done something on the inside. Now, I am going to fix what you have going on here because it looks like you actually plugged in things in the wrong order. Because it looks like you're trying to drill at one point. Let's get this window moved over. You're drilling with a 5/8 solid carbide drill. And I see this mistake. Again, Ash, nothing bad on your part. Inner radius, that should actually be where we plug in our 5/8. And then what I like to do is I like to point my clearance at my inner, right? So again, we're going to say inner, and then I would like to back off by about 40. Now, what you're going to see here on my Fusion is one, this tool path is now going to start all the way back out here where this blue line is. And then we're only going to wrap it off that back to that orange line. So again, as you guys will see, now we're getting that full tool path that we were having some problems. Oh, crap. Travis has got a TM1P. That's the machine I learned on back in the Marine Corps. That's a great machine. I think a lot of people give that machine a hard time, but man, that machine can do so much. So as you guys saw, I went ahead and adjusted that inside bore tool path when we simulated this originally. You guys noticed that we were hitting with a really big cut the first time through. This time we're making that nice clean first cut, second cut, third cut, right? So again, based on the information that we're given, it sounds like he's only getting trouble with this tool on the inside of the part, which would lead me to believe it's something with the tool, whether it be speeds and feeds or the way the tool is in the machine. Ah, so you just had to pick up from a different location. Okay. Adaptive turning in this case isn't going to do anything of value. Now, if we were talking about something like the outside of this part, the reason why I say it's not going to do anything of value is because it's all based on the geometry, right? So if we did turning adaptive roughing here, let's go ahead and pick our tool. Now, what it's going to want is a grooving tool or like a lollipop or a dog bone. I stand corrected. Give me a sec here. It did not like that tool. So let's go ahead and go back to the default library. And we are going to grab the OD grooving tool. Now this one here, if I can get it moved, you're going to see it's a circle profile. And as you're going to notice is what it's going to do is kind of like adaptive clearing on the mill. The idea is that it's going to slowly load up that tool using arcs and radiuses. And with that, it's going to try to maximize tool engagement before it actually comes out of the cut, right? So again, is because we're kind of working in a valley here, it works really, really well to come in, or if you work on like a hub or something like that, where you have space in between, this is where that arcing in, arcing out to help pull that chip and constantly engage that cutter is going to work quite well. Stuart, I hope that helps you out a little bit. Any other questions outside of that, guys? I would say we've been going for an hour, but it's only actually been 40 minutes. So I think if you would switch this part, and hear me out, this is just my thought on it, is you have a lot of meat here on this particular part. Now, this would be something that might work. So Ash, I don't know, did you end up making one out of like, say, a piece of aluminum just to test run it? because your vibration on the mill could be from the flute hitting as you go around it. Logged in with a good question. How do you do a facing from inside out? So Ash, that would be somewhere where I would start, because if you put like a piece of aluminum in there and you reran this part and you still get chatter from this tool, that would lead me to believe that it's 100% on the tool and the way the tool is in the machine, right? Now you would have to adjust your speeds and feeds, of course, but if you adjust your speeds and feeds for aluminum, you run it, it runs perfect, no chatter, no vibrations, you know that it's speeds and feeds on the insert. It's not the holder or the holder being clocked a little bit in the machine. Facing from the inside out. Good question. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this facing cycle he has right here. Go ahead and go over to our passes tab. Now you're going to notice is we can actually change from outside to inside to inside to outside. So again, very easily by swapping that one particular thing. Go ahead and simulate now. You're going to notice we come all the way to the inside of our part, and then we are back dragging outwards. Now we are getting collisions here because Fusion is thinking we're hitting and we're starting to load that tool up too much. Now that is adjustable in your settings. So again, is if you were to try to get rid of those errors, just remember when you're doing your actual tool setup, we don't see it here. So we are back dragging on that tool, and that is what Fusion thinks is you're causing a actual collision. Now, something I prefer to do, and this is just me, is if I wanted to back drag up and around, I'm going to create a new setup here just so we don't have any contaminations from tool paths. So let's go ahead and get our Z-axis flipped around. Beautiful. Stock, we're just going to do a fixed size cylinder. So let's say we were going to do the part the other way, right? And so we can all see the inside of this part. Let's get our X-axis flipped. So the idea that you would want to face up and around the outside profile, right? So again, we go in, we create our tool paths as always. Let's go ahead and do an adaptive clearing. Let's go ahead and grab a lovely 35-degree tool. Beautiful. And now something to keep in mind, this is where we play the game. And this is why I love using the OK method for you guys out there that are new, or you're somebody that struggles with getting good tool paths, is I just pick the tool path and hit OK. But if I evaluate the blue line scenario, for example, the blue lines don't start far enough in front of my part, and then I go to my tabs, I can see very first tab is geometry. This is in my Z axis, right? So this is where, I don't want to start the front of my toolpath from model front. I want to start from stock front. And just like that, you're going to notice we can now rough that all out in one shot. Now, if we wanted to get technical with this, this is where we could go in, turning profile finish. Reason why I did that for all of you out there is because it's bringing through that stock front. Again, we use that OK method. And as you can see, we're going in, we're starting all the way down at the bottom, dragging up, out, and around our profile to finish that part. Bogdan, I hope this helps you a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and simulate this just to show you guys. Again, we're starting down at the front of our part. We're dragging up, around, and all the way out and finish cycle. Now, there's a couple of cool things you could do with this even further, right? So based on this tool profile, I may not want to back drag. And by back drag, I mean drag it up this surface, right? So I can do things like turn on no drag. And what no dragging is going to now do is it's going to force the tool to always feed in on X or in on Z. It's never going to try to pull back in a cut. So as you guys will see here now, we'll go ahead and simulate this one more time. In this case, we are facing traditional down the front of my part. And then we are coming back in and turning the OD and making our way down. Again, you've noticed we jumped out there because we didn't want to hit this back wall and drag up. We want to come out, around, and back down. And then again, we come back up to that top segment and we went ahead and cut that little area there. So again, no dragging, great asset. We could take this a little bit further. Maybe we're okay with dragging. Maybe we actually want to go instead of front to back, back to front. Again, it looks almost identical, but instead we're going to start at the rear of our part and move all the way to the front, right? So again, we start at the back, pull our tool down and around and right off the front of our part. Cool. Any other questions outside of that? I see my phone keeps going on. Are we getting any? Looks like that is just a reminder. Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and check my emails now. Guys, let me know if you have any questions. We host this every Friday so that you guys have the possibility to ask the questions you may need, anything that you are curious about inside of Fusion, where you see value, or as we've done a few times, just want somebody to evaluate your program and roast what you got going on. We're more than happy to provide that at the end of the day. As you guys have seen, I'm going to go ahead and throw this over to the other screen. We have always here to help you guys. If you guys want to give something or you learn something new at any time, feel free. You can buy us a beer, buy us a steak. You can even actually buy support plans, custom one-on-one training looking at your use cases here. Again, I'm going to use this as an example. Ash might be struggling hard on this part, a million questions. Again, our knowledge here at jitcadcam goes much further than just utilizing toolpaths inside of Fusion, right? We've done a ton of machining. Do you want to use vacuum holding? Is it the speeds and feeds? Is my boring bar the problem? We have a ton of knowledge in machining as a whole. Again, we've had customers ask us about machines. Now, this is where I'm going to tell you guys, I believe all machines are bad. All machines are bad. It's always the machine's fault. But as a whole, we're here to give you knowledge because we do see what everybody does, and we can tell you what works well and what doesn't work well in a lot of shops. Now, I'm going to go ahead and jump over one more tab because we did recently figure out that I am now in the wrong area here. So let's go ahead and fix this. Just disappeared on you guys. We're going to go ahead and move this guy based on the order. Hey, now we're in front of it. So you guys can now move your Autodesk licenses that are direct over to jitcadcam. This is another way you could support this channel so that we can continue to bring this content. All we need from you is use the info email address down below. If you're in North America, take a screenshot of your license information so that we have which way are we? Way over there, we need the subscription ID and the expiration date so that we could send your renewal and you could be purchasing direct through us. So let's get back over here to the old screen share. I see a few more questions. When adaptive milling a pyramid shape, can you speed up the feed and speed as it's going up in Z small steps? So, seems like it's wasting time with fixed feed. Yes. So you can't necessarily speed it up. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend a few moments here. Let's go ahead and get a beautiful part profile to represent what he's referring to. So again, let's go ahead and just do a 3x4. We're going to extrude this out. And then just to get a pyramid shape, we're going to use our lovely draft tool. And let's just put a 15-degree angle on all of this. As you can see, we now have a pyramid shape that for some reason our engineers want us to suffer with. So let's get some tool paths on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in, we're going to do our milling. With that milling, we need to set our Z. Again, guys, work down that list, please. Don't try to jump too far down and then you realize something's wrong. But as you can see, we now have our XYZ, we have our stock, and we have our part. So let's hit this with our 3D adaptive clearing. Again, for those of you who don't know, I am 1/2 inch end mill fill. So let's go with our 1/2 inch end mill, aluminum roughing. And let's just see what we get for a toolpath, right? So the curiosity is, and I understand this completely at the end of the day, is when we start to run this particular toolpath, I'm going to show you more over here on this side, is we work at a maximum depth and then we work upwards. Now, the thing is because we've achieved maximum depth, we may need so much horsepower, so much torque, but as we move upwards, we are actually taking a smaller and smaller cut against that material. So some of the questions is can we now speed up the process working upwards? Well, there's no real easy way to do this at the end of the day. As you can see, there's what's called optimal load. Now, there's no actual other settings outside of maximum roughing step down. Again, you have fine step downs. You can do what's called machine shallow areas, but what this isn't going to do is adjust your speeds and feeds. So what I tell most people is if you're really trying to get a lot out of your cycle time, a really neat trick to this is one, take your maximum roughing step down and go ahead and increase your fine step down. Now, if I was to say 0.9 and then do half of that at 0.45, what you're going to notice is I have a lot less of a staircase effect here, right? So one, I've reduced cycle time by nothing more than just upping what that actual roughing toolpath is doing, right? So instead of letting it do what it's doing by default, which I think is a 10% step down or fine step down, AKA step back up, what I could do is one, increase that number and reduce the number of steps. Because to me, I could always come in after the fact, do something like a 3D ramp, right? And with that 3D ramp, this is where the fun and the magic happens, of course. This ramp is going to go down in Z continuously. I can now, again, give this maybe a little bit different of a number. Let's say we're going to do 100,000 maximum step downs, and I'm going to leave stock so that we don't booger up those walls, right? So again, in this case, I can just really load that tool up and increase what I'm doing. You guys like this menu stuck here? So again, I can now come back with a secondary toolpath, ramp my feed rate up super high. Again, just some examples here. Instead of doing, 200 or 120, let's go 200. Again, reducing that cycle time as you guys see, but this would be a good way to, again, bust all of those steps off or all those cusps, right? So again, with that, now if I was to actually approach this part, and this is something that I really needed to machine out in a hurry, I might actually, instead of using adaptive clearing, because again, as I've showed you guys in my videos, adaptive clearing goes max depth and then up. If I was to do something like pocket clearing, now what I'm going to do here is I am going to jump ahead and turn rest machining off so you guys can see this. But if I do pocket clearing, again, let's say I'm more than okay with 100,000 step downs. What I can get away with is ramping down that part very quick and doubling, if not tripling, my feed rate because I'm not using torque. Now, I do need to make a couple of changes here, as you guys may guess. Because this is a pocket toolpath, it's starting out with a bounding area. So we're going to go ahead and say none. Now you're seeing we're going all the way down that part. Now this is where, again, as I go back in, I'm, instead of running, at, 7,000 RPMs, I can crank my machine out to 12,000. I can get my cutting feed rate up to like 450, not 4,500. And just like that, we've now swapped out our strategy, again, speeding up cycle time, achieving a very small step down that part profile. Again, no right or wrong, but the idea that you're able to set how much that tool can override its feed rate based on the material or the material removal area is not a possibility, Stuart. Cool. Any other questions outside of that, guys? We're coming up on the 1 hour mark, even though we're an hour and a half into this, because again, we've had nothing but the best of times here on Friday. I'm going to go ahead and pull up my ticket system, make sure there's no tickets out there, anything lingering, anybody has any questions. Again, feel free to ask those questions at any time in chat. I do actually have a little bit of a post activity that I need to work on. Go ahead and grab these post processors from my customer. Again, great customer of mine, tons of questions all the time, was curious about doing some dwelling stuff. Again, we're going to go ahead and see what we can come up with. Yeah, Stuart, I mean, you're 100% correct. I always, when I'm going to machine a part, is although adaptive clearing is nice, it's more about what is the finished profile and what is my goal, right? You guys saw me jump right into this actual part profile, sticking with the same tool. If I was doing a mold or something very important, this is where, let me get back to design and get a couple more features on here. Let's say these corners are actually radiused, of course, and you never know what you're going to get, right? This is where, again, I could jump into ramp from adaptive clearing. And this might be where I swap my tool out. Again, we could go to something like a ball. Now, I like the idea of a ball in these very high vertical surfaces. So again, we'll just go 1/2 inch ball. We'll hit it with some finishing. And again, this is where we can use something like a bigger max step down. Let's say 150. We're going to actually take it from 20 down to 10. And just like that, we've now pre-finished that as much as we can. Again, the whole goal is to get rid of as many of those cusps as possible so that our tool isn't deflecting and chattering because of that prerequisite of surface, right? Again, this is just a, as I would call it, pre-finish. If I could spell finish. So based on the default tooling, again, we just play that game. What is the max that I can push it? Maybe we can get closer to like 250. Again, we're going to come back later. After the fact, we can actually set that up to do something else. We could hit it with that same tool path again. Maybe we're going to now do contour instead. And as you guys can see, we can swap out back to our original finish. Again, as you guys are seeing, there was also that custom one there. That was a recent product update that I keep forgetting about. But as you see, we just play the game. What's it going to take to get the actual true surface that I really want at the end of the day, right? Again, let's reorder this a little bit. Yep, big diameter ball L mill. The bigger, the better. Stuart, when you really start to talk and get into that realm of things, though, this is where I like the fact that when we talk about like geodesic, is the ability to utilize things like those circle segment cutters and better tooling overall. Again, you're going to get a big radius out of a little diameter tool, right? So again, as if this was your game plan, use something like this. You guys haven't seen me do some of this stuff yet. We have the ability to change, again, blend versus scallop, dry of our surfaces. There we go. Let's go with, actually, we're not going to get blend there. We're going to leave it on scallop. I am going to have to not use that toolpath because the barrel cutters only work in multi-axis contour, isn't it? Multi-axis contour, of course. Circle segment cutter. I picked the wrong toolpath. Not multi-axis contour. Man, I'm just having one of them days. We want multi-axis finishing. We want our circle segment cutter. Our tool is no longer red, which means this is supposed to work. No floors. Beautiful. All right. So we don't have any floor surfaces. We could give this some wall surfaces. We're going to go ahead and lie to it, see what we can come up with. Actually, we don't want floors. We only want walls. See if we get a tool path. We do not because it's all backwards. So let's go ahead and do a little bit more of movement here. Any other questions outside that? See, it's not going to be happy until we give it a true floor and wall. Long day. It's always a long day over here. Cool. Any other questions? I'm opening this up to all of you. I see a ton of you guys out there. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the good old design side of this part. Let's add another rectangle underneath this. We're going to go ahead and extrude it. We now have our floors and walls. We're going to go ahead and throw some fillets on here all the way around. Oh, that is an ugly fillet. Go ahead and undo that. Let's move our extrude up in our timeline. That would make sense so that we're now joined as two bodies. And then we can add our fillet around the bottom, right? Hey, look at that. We'll figure it out one way or another, right? Back to manufacture. Edit our tool path. Now give it a real floor somewhere. And just like that, Fusion Phil somehow got himself out of another stuck situation. 30 degrees in the U. 30 degrees Celsius? What is that in Fahrenheit? Again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to throw them in chat. You can also use the emails down below, whether it be the support email or the info email at any time. Looks like we've officially crossed the 1 hour mark. And of course, I'm getting a phone call on the other side. So guys, give me a sec. One of my customers is calling. All right, we're back. Sorry about that, guys. We had an emergency situation where a customer had to flip one of their axes because they said their entire tool path was going the wrong ways. 86 degrees Fahrenheit. That's rough. I think it's 62 at my house right now. Cool. Do you guys have any other questions? Any other curiosities? I'm going to go ahead and throw a few more tool paths at this. Let's go ahead and switch over to the old geodesic. Grab a better tool. We're going to need something like a ball end mill. This is where we find out how much I failed to. Oh, we might be able to get away with this. Drive surfaces. Go ahead and put a fillet around the bottom of this part. And let's see what we get. Well, that's with scallop. We don't want scallop. Let's get our blend strategy going. How's everybody else this week been? There we go. We got a tool path. See what this toolpath does. Obviously slams into the stock, right? And we're hitting the tool holder. Well, the good news is, as you guys can see, we're actually getting at least a toolpath where we want it. As you guys know, this is the #1 thing that I always recommend to people is try to do something in 3-axis before you get too crazy with 5-axis, or you're going to spend a ton of time computing toolpaths that are not needed, right? So again, we're going to now swap this out because we need some 5-axis action. We're going to leave it set to the bare minimums and see what it gives us. Again, we'll give that a few seconds to calculate. Why not get everything? Let's just go ahead and shoot off everything in here just so we can get tool pass all the way down and around. Get our stock model updated. Maybe we throw a little bit more at this. Let's do some advanced swerf maybe. Get back to our flat end mill. I'm gonna need a way better tool to be able to do this, but here's our surfaces. Any advice on creating a better workflow when it comes to embossing on a sphere? Or always run into trouble there. Zach, I would be curious, what is the issue you're having? Is it the clocked position? I need a little bit more info from you on that one. There we go. We got a nice 5-axis tool path going there. Hey, Lun's in here. So if you guys didn't know, Lun's the one that actually, as he's saying, he did provide that tool queue for us to go through and demonstrate. Now, as you guys are also seeing here, info-wise on this part, we're getting absolutely no A, B, and C motion. And we're also not seeing that because we don't have a machine selected. So let's go back and fix that as well. Here we go. We're going back to multi-axis. We, of course, want collision avoidance. So let's get collision avoidance turned on now. And then on our advanced swerf, a lot of our problems are coming from the fact that let's give this some guide curves. Now, I can think of another reason why this isn't wanting to give us a tool path, which is because that tool isn't going to be able to machine that swerf all the way down in one path. So let's do one more thing here. Let's turn on multiple paths. There we go, multiple depths. And let's just see if we can get anything to start, right? As you can see, I was correct once again. Knowing, as you can see, 40,000 step downs, we stop once we run out of tool. Again, just because we're in a multi-axis tool path, shaft and holder is causing our problems. Now, these aren't necessarily these problems. These are the machine itself telling you this just isn't physically possible. because you're going to hit something. I've trimmed it out of the way for you. Let's say we're connecting a sphere to a cylinder and finishing the form. Emboss a sketch feature. Raise surface. Okay, let me run this. Okay, so you're connecting a sphere to a cylinder. So you're making a lollipop, hypothetically. Also run in trying to emboss on a surface that is filleted or chamfered, like a helmet. Ah, okay. So yeah, when you get into embossing on complex curves, it's probably not gonna work the best for you at the end of the day. So what I would say is a couple of things is if we go ahead and shift gears here, let's say I do a form. You guys are gonna see how bad I am at making stuff here real quick in the form tool. Let's just say we flatten out the top a little bit. And we're going to go ahead and just bring in, let's bring this out. So now we have kind of a weird profile here. And the issue is if you try to create basically an emboss, now if you're doing lettering or anything of that nature, so again, we could say text, throw my text in here wherever I want it. And now I try to emboss that, this guy onto this surface. What you're going to notice is one, the placement gets crazy, right? So again, it has a hard time kind of calculating where you want it to get it placed efficiently, right? So this is kind of one of the things that always is fun is where do I want it? How do I want it? But now where are you getting the error from? Is it once you hit okay, or are you trying to do recessed texture? So again, as that emboss works, now I did just do a form here. So if we went back, let's say, for example, we go back to this guy, let's go back into design, get some text on here. So again, we're going to do our finished sketch and let's see if we can emboss this. This would be something curious I would love to hear from Autodesk on is like, how does this determine where it goes, right? So again, as we are running into an issue in this case where we get too high up, and of course it's not overlapping into the top, but as you can see, when I start to pull it around, it starts flipping all weird, upside down, right side up, things like that. Zach, feel free to send over something if you have it. Nah, Zach, you're not derailing anything. I bet somebody out there right now is watching this realizing that you could do some pretty crazy emboss stuff. I know a lot of people always ask me when it comes to embossing. Let's say, for example, let's do something like this. Let's do a 3-inch, and we're going to go ahead and do a lovely, there we go. I'm going to put a keyway on here just so you guys can see a reference location, right? My fingers do not seem to want to work. So again, let's say we're going to have a 1/4-inch deep keyway, 1/2 inch wide, and we, of course, are going to go horizontal, vertical, boom. And let's make that. Now, let's say, for example, you wanted to put text at a certain position around a cylinder. This is what always becomes kind of wild. Now, again, guys, pre-warning, every once in a while, I have to deal with this, and I always forget, so bear with me. But basically, where your text is in reference to center line, or where that actual feature is where it's going to wrap around the part, right? So again, when you emboss something like this based on this cylinder face, what you're going to notice is in this case, it's reflecting straight down onto my part profile, but it's backwards to what I actually need it to be, right? So again, is wherever you end up placing that will make all the difference in how you place that as to where it is going to be on that part profile. Now, for this example, if I turn my sketch back on, but if you notice, I drag my sketch more to the left, my text now rotates around to the cylinder. If I pull it back this way, it goes vice versa. So again, where you're at with your text does make a huge difference on where its placement is around that cylinder. Now, again, this could be as simple as me going in, creating this text the wrong direction. Again, we have that ability to flip it. Now that I've flipped my text, you can see my text has now come out normal. Presumably, we should have been sketching from this side, so forth and so on, right? So let's say, for example, I needed that S to start 90 degrees from where that keyway is, right? So this is where the great world of math is going to be your best friend, because if I have a line, and this is a center line, it's going to be a little tricky to see, but I can add dimensions from here to here. But this is where you're going to have to figure out that good old-fashioned math, you know, good pi, 3.14. Again, what is it? We don't need to find radius. We just need to find circumference. Trying to remember 2 pi, what is it? 2 pi r, yada, 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 right? So again, that would be the way you could do the math to get what you needed done. Zach, did you go ahead and send something in or not? We'll give you a few more minutes here. Let me get back over to my email, make sure nothing came in. For those of you wondering, yes, I'm typing in how to find the circumference of a circle right now. All right, there we go. We got it. So I was correct. It was 2 pi r, or in this case, 1.5. So again, we could go back. So if we say 2 times, extra credit for anybody out there if they know if there's an expression that you can utilize. And then we're going to go ahead and divide that by 4. And just like that, we have now started our text at a certain point wrapped around our cylinder. Again, with just a little bit of math. Obviously, my math is off. Can't be perfect all the time. Again, my text is backwards, which is also causing some problems. I wanted to emboss a line onto the top of a curve to cut out those channels. Oh, okay. So you want to make a mohawk on top center of the dome. Okay. So if I go back to that dome that I had, right? So if you wanted to do a mohawk up here on top is what you're requesting. There is a couple of ways to do this. One might simply be is I create a sketch in the view I want. And then from there, if I actually go in and I do a split face, so I want to split this face or multiple faces using that actual sketch. As you can see, I can now utilize something like press pull to pull out that mohawk. Now, if I didn't want that to taper, because what's happening is it is tapering all back to center of rotation, I could do again a split body this time. I want to split this guy based on that sketch. So let's go ahead and get that sketch turned back on. And as you can see, it's now going to cut that area. And now I have basically 2 bodies to work with. Now I will have to also split body this guy based on a surface. And in this case, this is where we start to hit those errors and issues, but I have a couple of tricks for that as well. So again, what we're really looking for is to keep this body inside of this area. So what I could do is get that center section turned off. Sometimes you can get Fusion to self-heal, clicking a couple of surfaces and hitting delete. In this case, it did not. But if I click the top surface, it did. Back again with my Mohawk that maintains that same profile around the outside. And now it is square to the world. So let's go back over, Zach. Let's see here. Let's get your model pulled up. Give me a sec here. I'm refreshing my system. Zach, where did you email in that part or not? Hey, EJ made it. Welcome to the chat again. I'm assuming you also ride a CBR 600. Oh, you shared the link in chat. Did I miss the link? Oh, so Zach, you can't put the link in chat. I don't know why it kicks it. Yeah. Elijah, you're out in California, right? If I remember. What part of California are you in? So down in the description of this video, there's a good place to be able to put that. You could just send it to the info email address if you like, or you can send it to the support. Where's Ventura County? I'm going to pull it up on my other screen. You're up in Los Angeles, aren't you? Oh, you're north of Los Angeles. That's right. I see that CBR 600. I remember running my Buell out there in Poway Mountains. Right next to the Haas factory. Hey, go over there when you get a chance and ask them if we can use their conference room so that we could do things like this upcoming event. Now, what side we are? We're only a week away from the one we're doing in Timco, and what I'm being told or scolded by them about is we may have too many people. Now, this other one that we were talking about doing in Minneapolis, I do have to say these dates aren't official. Sounds like we're pushing that one back to August. So guys, if you want us to come to your local area and conduct a free 3-day boot camp for you and anybody in your area, you got to get us in contact with your machine vendors. Now, we do work with more than just Haas. It seems like we're on a string of HFOs, but that's not the case. We have a few more in the pipeline for you guys. Awesome. Zach, did you get a chance to send over that file? Oh, hold on here. There it is. Just got it. Got to get everything downloaded here. Give me a sec. There we go. You guys are going to see how bad of a modeler I am. I'm not talking about this beard being modeled. That's for sure. Man, I see you guys coming and going. Maybe I should always start the stream 30 minutes early. I think we hit like 40 views before we actually started this. I was trying to test my audio to see if my audio could get any better, and I accidentally started this stream instead of a private stream. Zach, don't be surprised when we get this opened up and everybody starts bugging you about stuff. All right. Spartan helmet? What is this? Mandalorian Spartan helmet? So if you wanted to put a Mohawk, now I would have to ask, do you want the Mohawk to go all the way down to the back of the helmet? Let's do it all the way down. All right. So I'm going to cheat the system here. Now, given you have this kind of weird profile on the outside, there's a lot of ways you could achieve this. The easiest way, in my opinion, where is your origin? All right. Even better. Your origin's right on center. Let's just split the helmet in half, right? Oh, we can't split. Hold on here. It's several pieces. Even better. Hey, look at that. You have... what you got going on there? You have a surface and you have more surfaces. Nice. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, one, you have two bodies here. So we're going to have to split this twice, but let's get into it. So split body. Let's do the top half based on your origin. Again, we're going to go ahead and repeat that split to the bottom half. based on that same origin plane. And now presumably what I have is 2 lefts and 2 rights, right? And as you guys can see, that is basically the view at which I would want that mohawk, or how I could go about it. Is this where, yeah, this is where we roast people, man. Buckle up, it's gonna get good. No. So again, I am dealing with 2 separate areas when I split this, but the idea would be is I just need to create a sketch. Now I could create a sketch on the profile, or I could create a sketch on the plane. Either one that I choose right now is going to require some additional projection. So again, we're going to project everything from this surface as well. And what I'm going to do is get these bodies out of the way so that you guys can see I now have the top of the helmet all the way around to the back covered area, right? So with that, I have the freedom to do quite a bit of stuff. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some of his other sketches out of my way. But if I wanted a mohawk, presumably, I could go ahead and sketch that first line. Maybe I sketch my second line coming off this projected edge down here. And then if I'm just proof of concept, this is why I love the ability just to test run a few things, is I might also connect the 2 of these on the inside. You guys will see why here in a minute. Lastly, we're going to hit this with a lovely spline around the outside. It's not pretty. Oh, let's go ahead. I hit escape too quick. Try to cancel the tool versus canceling everything else going on. We're going to see Elijah next week rocking this on his motorcycle. So again, this is where I'm going to go ahead and take my areas to be extruded. And in this case, I could actually do one side, or I could do symmetrical. Now I did turn off my bodies, so let's get our bodies turned back on. We're gonna, again, let's go ahead and say 2 sides or symmetrical. Now that's gonna give it to us right on center. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make this a brand new body. Again, the whole reason why I'm extruding this lower area, just to be safe, is to make sure that, one, you're gonna notice either we're gonna start to cut into that profile, or if I make this dramatically bigger, at some point we exceed that helmet's profile, right? So again, as you guys can see, is we're gonna go ahead and bring that in. That's going to be a brand new body. And as you can see, in short, that's a mohawk, right? Now, we can go ahead and do a lot more with this. Again, there's the second half of our helmet. If I wanted to, I could now join this stuff back together, do a combine. There's a lot of stuff that you can get away with. Now, again, it's really going to come down to what Zach needs to do, or what Zach is wanting to do with this. More than anything. Zach, you want to give us a little bit more info about what you want or how you want it? Elijah out there went through a lot to do op 2 of those lures in the other palette I sent. I had to simulate and save the STL file. Awesome. We'll go ahead and take a look at that here in a minute. Yeah, it'll go good with my Leonidas style beard. So awesome. So, I mean, at this point, obviously you've gotten something much better than you expected. We could take this up a few notches. You could actually, if you wanted to, this is kind of the fun thing, is if we went over to the form tool, you know, we could actually start using the form tool to make much more organic shapes and profiles. There's no shortage of really what you can and cannot do at this point. So again, if we went ahead and create some surfaces, actually, we're going to go ahead and undo that. But again, this is just the fun of just outside the box thinking, I think. So if I wanted to keep it relatively simple, we of course could add a couple of fillets to it, maybe clean up these front 2 edges, back 2 edges. I don't know what the scale is here, so we're going to go ahead and this looks like it's coming through as millimeters. We're going to get away with 100? No, we are not. We're going to have to go something like 50. Now you can see we have a little bit cleaner shape front and back. Again, the sky's the limit. I'm no modeling expert. The form tool would be kind of where you could start to go to really get organically shaped, maybe add kind of texture and things like that. Once everything's said and done though, I mean, if I was to print this as one whole piece, now this leads me into a couple of really cool things is, let's say we want to combine this all back together. So I'm going to merge this all back down into one piece now with a one-piece design. Maybe you're going to 3D print this. Maybe again, I don't know what you're doing with this, Zach. Whatever you do in your free time is yours. But one neat thing I've showed some people in the past is if we go back and we actually turn on our origin, this is where I want to split this in layers, right? So I can actually go in and create a actual surface here for splitting. Let's go ahead and create a sketch, create a surface. And then we are going to create a patch. Now, what this allows me to do is to create my layers to split this up. So again, as we go into a pattern of that surface based on our direction, and we're looking for that axis there. And again, we can now say symmetrical. I want to space this out in 200mm spacings. I want, you know, an exceptional amount. We actually want to go spacing, not extent, by 200. And just like that, I now have my layers to split this thing up. So again, we can now go back. We're going to split this entire one body utilizing these different tools. And that bottom one is useless. So let's go ahead and get that bottom one turned off. Oh, we went ahead and missed that. Give me 1 sec here. Let's do that one more time. We don't need the top one. There we go. And just like that, we've now layered out several different areas of that actual helmet. So again, if you wanted to go 3D print this, as you can see, you have your different layers for the helmet. We can 3D print each one individually. We could actually up the ante even more. This is why I love doing this. Maybe you want to now throw in some dowel pins or something to align this. And we could put a circle here and a circle here. And then I can extrude this and this. Again, we'll say symmetrical in this case, just because it's going to go both ways. New body. And then now we have the bottom and the top being able to be held together. Oh. So, Zach, I hope that helps you out. By all means, let's go ahead and shift gears. Elijah in here with more fishing lure questions. Let's see where, Elijah, did you send that in anywhere? I haven't seen it. No problem, buddy. Now, one more thing I'll leave you with, guys, while Elijah gets the chance to put something in chat is, oh, last week? Okay, I'll take a look at that here. We'll try to get that back home. Is one, you usually don't want this to be individual bodies, so I would recommend converting these to components. But when you get down to that workflow and you've got everything the way you like it, it's always nice to clean things up. Now, you can go in and you could actually do what's called a remove. And what that will do is you could see is it just removed all of those bodies and surfaces that we had. And it actually made a remove in my timeline. So again, now when we look at everything, I have all my helmet pieces as separate components. I actually have my dowel pins in there, as you guys can see as well. And I removed any additional things like surfaces, bodies that we don't need anymore. Again, this is just a use case where if I back up my timeline, I'm actually going to do a combine. I would like to cut this guy utilizing what would be my dowel pins. Let's go back a little further. We need to go ahead and go before we created our components, right? So again, we know our dowel pin 1 and 2. So let's go ahead and do our combine this. And then our tool is going to be this guy and this guy. Now we're going to keep that tool once we cut. And the reason for that is now we need to cut the bottom half. Again, this time we're going to go ahead and turn the keep tool off, picking the same two. And now you'll notice those tools disappeared, which is the bodies, but we have now officially cut into our model again. So once again, that rinse and repeat, we go ahead and take all of that helmet, convert those to a component, take all of that additional stuff that we've used for modeling and manipulation, and we're going to go ahead and just remove those all together from our file, and away we go. Awesome. Let's get Elijah's piece pulled up here. Let's get back to the old free support. That was June 6th. And where was it? It was Lures Op 2, right? Fixture Lure fixtures 3 each. Was that the one? Let me know in chat there, Elijah. Which one are we going for here? Also, for anybody else out there, if you have any questions, feel free to throw those questions in chat. Feel free to send us an email with something that you're working on and that needs help. Yep. So here's your second setup. Manufacture. I see what your problem is. So what you're saying is you went from setup 1 into setup 2, right? Looks like you're making your pallets. I'll give you a second here to throw in chat. Well, I see here in your model, you have, of course, your pallet that you made. And then from your design standpoint, you have your 3 separate lures, right? Give you a few seconds here. Actually made that palette better. That's good to hear. I'm glad to hear that. You're going to email the new one? Awesome. I'll wait for it here. Anybody else out there have any other questions at any time? Feel free to reach out. We're here for you guys like always. So I'm just checking through my emails, make sure we haven't missed any of you guys yet. Actually, what's kind of funny, give me a sec here, guys. It looks like somebody on Facebook just responded to something we had posted. Give me a sec here. You guys still hear me and everything all right out there? I didn't close anything out. There we go. We're back. Sent. Emailed the new one. Better palette. All right. Cool. We'll start. We'll go back to our other free support session then. Get everything organized here. And let's get that pulled up. There we go. Sorry if it's a little quiet at the moment. I'm not sitting here rambling on. I'm trying to do a million things at once, as you guys can imagine. Our fancy dancy bootstrapped operation over here. Yours truly has to get everything done by himself. No, I'm just kidding. Open in Fusion. There we go. Continue in background. Don't see any other emails. No more tickets in yet at the moment. Sure thing, Zach. Go ahead, send it over. Let's take a look. The worst thing I'm going to do is send you a bill for a bunch of beers that, as you guys that are new don't know about. Is if you found something useful, something helpful, you like what you see, by all means, you can go out, buy us some beers, buy us some steaks, so that we can continue to make this content and at least not go hungry. But also, again, you can move your commercial license of Fusion over to us if you're in North America. Let me get back to my screen share here. Got to go see if the good old Chrome is yelling at me about his part. It is. There we go. Need to clean up my workspace here a little bit. We'll wait for this to come in so nothing has too big of a panic. There we go. Latest version just came in. Let's get some of this stuff cleared out. Don't save. We don't need that. Give me a few more minutes here. And there we go. All right, we're back to the fishing lures. We don't want this one and we don't want this one, but I'm probably going to regret this because we're going to have to open it back up anyways, right? All right. So here we go. Elijah set stuff over. Let's get OBS back up. Cool. So the dilemma, as I'm hearing, and I'm pretty sure I already know, is once you went from setup 1 to setup 2 is the continuous rest machining. Am I correct, Elijah? You have to let me know. So this is one that's tricky because, one, I remember in your first setup, you weren't symmetrical in all 3 setups, so it gets a little tricky. But I'll show you guys a couple of things here. So first and foremost, I'm going to go ahead and jump back to the design side of things. Now, in this case, you do not have your lure. I'm thinking right. Yep, it's down here. Okay. So your lure isn't coming linked in. That would be the first thing. And I'm going to show you why this is important when we talk about linking this in. So what I actually do need to do is I'm going to do a little preparatory work here. Let's go ahead and get this saved so that we have it with everything. And what I want to do is I want to export one of these guys. Again, small lure body. Let's go. Hey, Stuart with $1.99. Let's go. Give this 1 second. I think I exported that to my desktop when really what I wanted was to export this to my project, not my desktop. All right. So this is where we tear apart everything that Elijah has done, right? My favorite thing. So what is going to be a big deal here, and the reason why I'm removing those out of there is because had we at the small lure level or in another file, this is where we're starting to see that ability to link your cam through. In this case, it is turned off. So let's get everything turned on here. Let's get some stuff out of our way. We don't need construction planes. There we go. I don't know what happened to the front of this lure. Maybe somebody can explain that to me. Was it all messed up here too? Looks like you got some weird things going on here. Get some sauce for a little bit of A1, right? Okay, there we go. For the sake of this actual tool, what do you got going on here? When did you do this guy in your timeline? Right there. Let's get that out there. Boom. We're back to a normal part. So first and foremost, I'm going to show this to you guys. It might be helpful to you. It might not. But from a manufacturing standpoint, I'm going to do this against what I would call the original customer part. The idea would be is we would do this all stacked up in a file, and then it would transfer through to our actual jigs. So if I go in and I create my setup in this case, and we do know one, my Z is upside down. So let's get this flipped. So there we go. We're going to machine this from the backside. We're probably going to face it off, right? I can't remember off the top of my head everything we did last week, but it's going to be all right. There we go. There's our facing tool path. And then presumably we're going to just adaptive rough around the outside. Again, we're going to go to a certain depth. I like that where it is. And let's just hit this with a 2D contour. Boom. Beautiful, right? So what I've done so far is I've now basically preparatoryed my stock for anything I'm going to do after this. Now, the reason why I wanted to do this at the individual part model is because when I go back to this palette that he's utilizing, now this is where he's got organization. So he's got a component set up for the lures themselves. And if I insert this guy in here, one, you're going to notice there's my part, but now it is linked. This is a link between my actual part I'm manufacturing in my jigs and fixtures back to the original customer part in this case. So again, is if I do a joint, and let's just say we're going to go bottom. Let me guess that's not a round hole. There we go. That one's a round hole. If yours truly can pick it. There we go. And we are going to place that. Looks like here. And we're going to flip that. So now we have our lure in place. We have it in our first pocket for manufacturing. And when we jump over to manufacture, what you're going to notice is I can now import the manufacturing data. So if I say insert manufacturer data, did I not save the other file? I did save the other file. Let's go back here. Let's see what's going on with this thing. So again, we want to insert manufacturer data. And we're not getting that data to insert. So now we're going to have to play the game of troubleshooting, right? So again, we have our setup. We did some toolpaths here. We should be bringing that data over, which for some reason we are not, which would possibly lead me to believe that it's at the wrong level of everything going on, or we lack a save here. Let's start with the save. And now let's try to insert our manufacturer data. Again, we're not getting anything. Give it a second to save. Maybe we're waiting on something still. Or maybe I'm crazy. You guys let me know. Is it because we're too far down in the system? We should not be, of course. We have our part inserted. Let's go ahead and insert this into a blank file and see what happens, right? Maybe yours truly put toolpaths on the wrong part. There is our small fixture lure. Let's switch to manufacture. See, we are getting insert manufacturer data here. So this is where we're now seeing that CAM data come through. So it must be something in the way this is set up, which would lead me to go back to design like always. Let's go ahead and undo. I'm going to insert this at the top level just to see if that will fix the problem. So again, before we go through and do all of our joints and everything and link this together, let's just check our manufacturer. So it is something to do with the part actually being at the top level possible. And I wanted to show you guys this because, again, we have that linked data. We're going to go ahead and go back to design. Let's get our joint in place this time. I'm going to build some content for you guys one of these days around the whole idea of like tombstones and fixturing and things of that nature. But there we go. We have our actual part in place. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this a couple more times. There we go. We now have 3 identicals all linked back to the original. A few more joints here just to get everything all nice and pretty. And we're going to do that one more time. Repeat joint, bottom center. Get that on that hole. So now when we jump from design over to manufacture, what you're going to see is it's going to try to bring in our toolpaths for each individual one. But the neat thing that's happening right now is each one is on its own setup, but we have the ability to do quite a bit here. So for example, if I'm using a 0-point fixture system, is I can actually go in and redefine different things based on that geometry and that setup, right? So again, you have the ability to repick, redetermine, and redefine what you're trying to do. Now, what I am seeing is my XYZ is in a weird position. So let's go ahead and see what's going on there as well. Regenerate everything. So again, we may need to fix that as well. So again, let's see what's going on. We can't repick anything, but we can break that link. But what I want to see happen, yep, so all of them actually rotated it to, what rotation are we in? Get everything out of the way. There's our part. Offset one of the holes on the bottom. I need a little bit more information on what you're looking for here. So let's go ahead and do this. We're going to beat the system. Let's break the link. And now let's edit this thing. I was thinking about this backwards now that I'm in my own head. I was thinking at the end of the day, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to define this based on, we would actually need to model this at the palette level, which I have some tips and tricks for that as well. Oh, we're upside down again. There would be no palette. We're going to say Z-axis the other way. Let's get these toolpaths working. So again, there's our blank that we're going to utilize. I'm way off. What is going on here? Let's go ahead and regenerate. all of our tool paths are upside down, and I believe that is because this is forced tool orientation because of all of the stuff that we've done. All right. Let's back up a few steps. This is what happens when I don't get time to fully investigate something, and you guys get to see me do this in real time. All right. So what's happening is we are getting an XYZ orientation here, but we're actually able to control orientation as well at the individual tool levels. And that is what's getting me when we talk about this jig and fixture, right? So again, is the idea would be is I would break the link. Of course, we would redefine this. Let's get our Z axis the right way. We're going to go ahead and do a bulk edit here. We want to turn tool orientation to no. And now we're actually machining the backside of our part, right? So again, is if we now go in and we set up 2 in this case. From proceeding, we're machining said body. Again, this is where we need to make sure everything's defined the same. Pick our Z, pick our X. Flip this back the other way. There we go. And this is where the continuous rest machining is always going to be a fun battle. So give me a few seconds, guys. We want to make sure that we're not just machining the right body, but we're always using the same linked component, of course, so that our continuous rest machining doesn't keep getting angry. Go small. We need our fixture. Yep. So this is what I was thinking is going to happen is it's having a hard time with our original stock and the way everything was defined and referencing the same model more than once. Again, let's just go through this. Yours truly knows all the tips and tricks and secrets. So as you're seeing, we're fighting a battle where it keeps trying to reference something that's not there. So this is where instead of possibly doing a new setup, let's just go in and duplicate. So everything is the same. Flip our Z. Use our continuous rest machining. And now, of course, it works, right? Been a long week. Been a very long week here, as you guys can see. So as you can see, we can start to machine everything back the other way, which means we're working with the stock model from setup 1 into setup 2. So this would be a little bit better of a technique to do, but the bad news is we would need to model one of these. And this is, again, is we've kind of walked through this, as Elijah knows, is we've done some things with component patterns. We've done quite a bit of different stuff with toolpath patterns. Now, this is where, in my opinion, what would be best is when we get to that setup 2, let's get our fixture in here. Here it is. So again, when we right away start off, I have my continuous rest machining coming through. We're going to go ahead and swap a few of these tool paths out. Let's say we're actually doing 3D adaptive clearing back the other way. We have our rest machining in effect. This just gets us to the point where we've got that all cleaned up, right? Not the prettiest and most beautiful thing ever, but I think you guys are seeing the point. Is this is where doing something like either multiple work offsets or creating a nice pattern. And again, with Elijah's setup, this works really, really well to say new pattern. Now I could do a component pattern, or I could even do a duplication pattern. A duplication pattern is going to be as simple as, where's he got his holes? We could say, I want one not just here, but I want one here and I want one here, right? So without those models being in place, I can create those patterns that are going to rough and machine each one individually and stack them across multiple setups, right? So as you can see now, I have all of my tool paths, even though I only have one component in place. On the design side, had I put all my lures in their positions, as I have done here, if I go back to manufacture, instead of using a duplication pattern, I could say component pattern, pick my first component. And again, what's going to happen is it's now jumping to see all the other ones, right? So we do have a ton of actual content on fixtures and tombstones. I'll build out some more content, especially with this workflow being as messy as it is, Because if we simulate this right now, it's going to be a little bit ugly because we're working with just one as it sits, right? So this is where you could start to have some different problems. And again, the idea is mass production of something like this. Now, if you really wanted to get technical with this, what I could do, it's not the best of cases, but let's say, for example, I am going to run all three of these from the same work offset and everything of that nature, right? So what I would really need to do is I would need to go through and create a setup for each individual part. Now that could be duplicated, right? So again, as you guys are seeing me do here, I'm duplicating this. I'm going to the second one now. As you can see, this is my second part. We're going to go ahead and see what we can redeem in toolpaths. Again, I am going to fix this because it's not recognizing. Again, this is where instead of utilizing the ability to pick a chain, if I did something like silhouette outside, right, I can auto pick and define these toolpaths for me. So again, as you guys can see, here's my second part. Again, I could take this and duplicate. Give me one sec here. And what I'm doing is now creating, again, another rest machining from preceding setups, utilizing the same model selection, giving this one now its own fixture. And as you'll see is we now have 1 and 2 in place. So again, I need to get a little further down here. As you can see, there's now 2 parts next to each other, each have their own stock in place. Now I can't activate both of these at the same time. So again, as I could manually turn one on, turn one off. But this is, again, this is when you get into those really nitty gritty niche kind of workflow type items, right? So again, we'd have to turn prepare and edit. We're going to do tool orientation. No. Okay, that's good. I think I just failed to flip my Z on that second one. I did. There we go. There's our facing on the backside, right? But when you go in and you start to get further and further in this, you're going to realize you're setting up each one individually still at the end of the day. But what I would personally do is my setups are all going to come from the same selected origin. So again, as I'm assuming you're using bottom center of the palette. Now, this one is going to be based on the math from that location. My next one is also going to be based on the math from that location. I just have to program each part individually here, all referencing the same WCS location, right? Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to run 3 parts on the same palette, all from one work offset, but you need that stock to be recognized and pulled through automatically. So again, this is very messy, guys. Don't get too caught up in this. I know we lost quite a few viewers as I start to get deeper and deeper in here. I will show you guys at the end of the day. I'll build some content, really good content for you around how to set this up efficiently and wisely at the end of the day so that you're not messing with it as much as I am and how it's going to work even better for you. In a perfect world, Elijah, in your case, had you machined all 3 of those exactly where they're going to go on setup 2, the continuous rest machining would probably work quite well. This case is not it, because what I'm having to do, again, if you wanted a summary, what I'm having to do is basically split each one of these out individually and program each part so that that individual part is being ran in setup 1 and setup 2. Sorry, guys, I'm going to have to break the link. And then let's delete these 2. So again, if I get this the way it should be, that's setup 1, setup 1, setup 2, setup 2, right? So this is what you're seeing when it comes down to setup 2 again, right? So now we have 2 setup 2s in place. With that, when I post this out, this is where it really becomes fun, is because I'm posting both lures on the same jig from the same WCS, but I can now utilize things like minimize order for tool changes. And what you'll see is it'll reorder all of my stuff if I was using different tools. So now this is where I may need to go in and set up different tool numbers, again, to try to group things in a production environment. So I hope that's a little bit more helpful. I know it's not ideal, but when you get into the world of production, everybody thinks it's fast and easy. when you're going to find yourself spending a ton of time, as you can see here, scrutinizing down and trying to machine these out as much as possible and get a nice, clean, and simple workflow, right? Outside of that, do you guys have any other questions? Zach, thank you very much for the beers. I appreciate it greatly. Any other question? Yeah, I mean, 100%, Jamie. This is all on Elijah, man. He's built his own palette system utilizing a 0-point fixture system. No problem, man. Let me go back to my email and see what you got. A sword model. Here we go. We're going to go ahead and get this downloaded. Give me a few seconds here. We're getting down to the wire. How long have we been going? Oh, man, we're hitting the top of the hour. Sorry, we're closing it down. We're not going to do it, Zach. We're gonna hold off. Just kidding. Let's go ahead and see what he's got. Let's see what I'm getting into. Maybe I'll change my mind the moment I get this all uploaded and opened. I know I'm a huge fan at the end of the day. Anytime you can palletize something or make your life easy, like this is the way to go for sure. You can do things so much faster. You can then change the parts on the pallet outside the machine. All right, let's get this opened up. Maybe, maybe not. Editing the edge that goes through here. Creating it on the model that is gold. All right, let's see what we have going on. So you have the blade itself. All right. How I would do it. Oh, that's always a good question. All right. So presumably you have more or less 4 points, and it's technically 2 separate profiles, but it is technically symmetrical top and bottom, and then it is symmetrical front and back. So that's probably where I would start at the end of the day. Now there's a lot of ways you could do this. Is just for my sake, I would possibly look at doing something in 3D and then possibly doing a sweep or a loft kind of profile if you can get away with it, right? Now, if I'm thinking in the world of a loft, there's a lot of things I could do. And with that, I would start by creating a sketch, and then I'm going to use a rectangle to determine this. Is at this point, let's say this is where the handle is going to meet. I would like my profile to look something like that, right? Now, if I was to use, like you guys saw, that kind of layer cake method, where I start to create additional planes further and further out, right? Again, we're going to go one more off of that. But what I'm really looking to do is to continue with what I have, right? So now on this plane, what I would like to do, again, another rectangle, but I would like this to possibly, you know, be a little bit steeper of an angle, right? Or a little bit less here and here. And we're going to go ahead and do another one. So one more time, we're going to create a new sketch here. And with that, we're going to do another rectangle, because why not? Who doesn't love some good old-fashioned rectangles? Back again one more time, a little bit less here. And then one more here down at the end. And we'll just make this a very small defined area. Okay, so now that I have my profiles to go through, right? This is where, like I said, is I could either do a loft or something like a sweep. So if I do loft, I can actually loft the segments to one another. So again, if I go here to here, to here, to here, I think you're already starting to see what is happening, right? So as you're going to have to let me know in chat, but without doing the tip, as you can see, I've gotten quite a bit, and then I can step this up a little bit further with a little bit of mirror. So again, I want to mirror this half this way. We're going to join those two together. I'm going to mirror this a third time, take this whole body across the backside. And then just like that, I've created that profile. So if I start to use press pull now, I can pull this out to a point. Now it is going to break because of the overlap. So I do need a couple more of those sweep functions. But again, this is the cool thing about this. Now, again, this is a pro tip from me, is if I go back to those sketches and I want to manipulate this shape, I have full range in here to start to pull and push and change whatever that profile is in real time. So again, as if I wanted to bring this further and further down, as you're seeing me manipulate one, everything else is also manipulated on the fly, right? So again, a little bit wider here, a little bit narrower here. Maybe we'll bring this in. And all I'm doing is I'm controlling those based on those couple of parameters, right? So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete that offset on the tip of it. But as you can see, it's basically as simple as that. Cool. Any other questions from anybody out there? As you guys have seen today, we've covered everything from some modeling to a lot of CAM stuff as always. As you guys know, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Fusion Phil over here at jitcadcam. Another 2 hours worth of free support Friday. Super pumped to help you guys work you through different workflows, roast your setups as always. Feel free at any time to buy us a beer, buy us a steak if you like what you saw, learn something new. You guys can also move any of your commercial software from Autodesk over to us. Again, all you got to do is add a screenshot of your subscriptions. That's under billing and orders, subscriptions and contracts. Take a screenshot. We could also help you with this process. Throw it over to the info at jitcadcam email down below. I hope you guys have an outstanding weekend. It's always great to sit here and spend my Fridays with you guys. Go out, have a great time, and I will see you guys all next week with what might be a live on-site special presentation. We're still waiting to see what's going to happen.